So I didn't pass out per se, but I did go into kidney failure, and I spent a week in the hospital in Miami. I went through a bunch of extensive testing, and the nephrologist that I met with said, hey, look, it looks like you have IgA nephropathy. It's this progressive kidney disease, which eventually will lead to kidney failure, and you'll need a transplant, and you'll need to be on dialysis, yada, yada, yada. Whoa, right? So I was 27, at the tip of the spear in the sport, and my whole world kind of crashed down on me. So,
have you ever heard the phrase becoming the best version of yourself? Yeah, me too. But what does that even mean, and how do we become that person? I'm here to help you navigate through those questions and come up with actionable steps in order for you to live your best life. We've got to discover what we want. We've got to figure out a plan on how to get there, and then we have to go. We can't just sit and wait any longer. Life won't wait on us. So come join me on this constant journey to become the best version of yourself and to find your best you. I'll see you on the other side. All right, well, appreciate you guys. I'm going to press the record button here. I guess that'd be smart. All right, it's on, it's going. All right, well, welcome. Well, welcome, everybody. Nick Carrier's Best You podcast after the workout. Just crushed a 30-minute workout. That's pretty good. Nice, nice. Everybody got a few drinks, a little bit of food. Looks good. Make the interview a little bit better. It's going to be great anyway, but his words will be a little bit better after one drink, maybe. Yeah, all right, well, basically, this is Will Moorad. Will is the 10th fittest man on planet Earth. He finished 10th in the CrossFit Games this past summer, which is freaking awesome. So basically, the way I want to actually start today, before we get back into your story, is just like, what are you most excited about now after your 10th place finish this year?
man, it's kind of cliche, but I think just building on my success from this past season.
Yeah.
Being an athlete, you have to have short-term memory, right? So I had awesome success this year, and I'm proud of that effort, but now we need to build on that, and we need to do a little bit better next year. So I think I'm excited to get back into the season, to start the 2020 season, and just start ticking off goals for this year.
Yeah.
Just put last year behind me and head down.
Is there any one particular thing right now that you're like, I need to start doing this better? That would make the biggest difference?
Right now, I partially tore my hamstring at the games, so right. I'm just kind of focused on rehabbing right now, and not so much working on any weaknesses, just making sure my body's recovered from the games, because the season is really, really tiring. I'm traveling all over the world. I'm competing all the time. So just making sure my body and mind are fully recovered before I really start grinding and training and pushing my body again.
Okay.
So health.
Yeah, I got you. Awesome. So to give everybody a little background on Will, after kind of starting there, Will grew up in Brentwood, Tennessee, went to Ravenwood High School, right?
Yeah, correct.
Awesome. So local guy, which is very rare to come by nowadays. But he grew up playing soccer and then played D1 soccer over at Belmont. I know we had a few Belmont students here today. I'm not sure if they're here anymore. But so he played D1 soccer over at Belmont. And then kind of after soccer, when you realized that part of your life, that part of your career was over with, you kind of found CrossFit. And that kind of filled the void of being able to compete. And you've always really loved working out, studied exercise science, right?
Yeah.
And so started doing CrossFit and back in 2011. And then kind of to fast forward through that, in 2014, he finished 14th overall in the CrossFit Games. So had a really high burst on the scene and everything like that. And then 2015, 2016 just came up short of making it to the games. And then in 2017 is kind of really where a big part of his story, a big part of his life kind of began, in the sense that when he was training, you had kidney failure and you passed out, right? And then after going to the doctor, they diagnosed him with an autoimmune disorder called IgA nephropathy, right? And then from there on out, I kind of want you to take your story from there, starting back in 2017. So when you were kind of diagnosed with that autoimmune disease, what's going through your head? What's next for Will Moorad?
Yeah, so I was in Miami for an event. It's called Wadapalooza. If you guys are familiar with CrossFit, it's like one of the big events outside of the CrossFit Games. So I didn't pass out per se, but I did go into kidney failure, and I spent a week in the hospital in Miami. I went through a bunch of extensive testing, and the nephrologist that I met with said, hey, look, it looks like you have IgA nephropathy. It's this progressive kidney disease, which eventually will lead to kidney failure, and you'll need a transplant, and you'll need to be on dialysis, yada, yada, yada. Whoa, right? So I was 27 at the tip of the spear in the sport, and my whole world like kind of crashed down on me. So I just stopped. I retired. I got a job working in consulting in the tech industry, and just moved on with my life.
Y'all have fun.
Yeah, that's fun.
If you're by yourself, no worries. Just follow the lead.
Yeah, so about 8 months into that new career, I had been seeing a nephrologist, getting my blood work done, just making sure everything was running smoothly. And my nephrologist in Nashville said, hey, look, you don't have this disease. We went back and looked at your pathology report. There's no evidence of this. I don't know what the doctor in Miami was talking about.
And kind of like through this process, weren't you taking some like medication as remedies for the disorder?
Yeah, so for any kidney, not for any kidney, but for my specific kidney disease, they treat it with blood pressure medicine. So they were like giving me blood pressure medicine that I was taking every day, which for a healthy person isn't healthy, right?
Yeah.
My blood pressure would get super low. So like 2 o'clock every day, I'll never forget this, 2 o'clock every day for probably 6 months, I just would get overwhelmed with fatigue. And I didn't know what it was. I was like, maybe corporate America is just really exhausting. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, right? So come to find out, I didn't need those drugs that I was taking. We don't have to dive into like healthcare or any of that, but
no, let's get into it.
Yeah. In Nashville, perfect,
Right.
on the loudspeaker. So so I was told I didn't have this disease, and I immediately called my wife and was like, hey, this is the deal.
So you don't have the disease. Is that like immediately you're like, all right, I'm going to go back into CrossFit? Or like what's the gap time between not having the disease anymore to I'm going to go back into doing CrossFit?
Yeah, so it was August when I got that news, and I didn't compete again until January 2018.
Okay.
So it was a little bit of time between. I was still working. I didn't leave my corporate job until February of 2018.
Okay.
To go back into the sport. So I really just wanted to keep training and maybe make my training a little bit more aggressive and see how my body tolerated it. Because it's a traumatic event to like go through kidney failure. And as a professional athlete, there's a point when you're pushing your body where you can stop, like most normal humans will do, and you can chill, and that's fine. And then you need to excel, you have to push beyond that, and you have to do that over and over and over. And it took me 6 months to just get comfortable training again, and being comfortable with like feeling kind of shitty after training sessions, because that's what it takes.
Was there any like one particular training session that you can remember in which like you felt that feeling to where I can now push myself like that little bit extra?
Yeah, there was a lot of training sessions. It's just being really conscious of myself. And this process has really helped me build self-awareness and just consciousness when I'm training, and just being within my body and knowing all the signs of fatigue or overtraining or whatever it is. So it took some time to get back into the sport, but when I had some success getting comfortable training again, I talked to my wife. We decided we're going to go back full speed into training. I talked to my coach, Max Alhaj, who owns Training Think Tank. And he was like, let's see what we can do. So that was February 2018.
Yeah.
Left the corporate job, started doing some remote coaching, and signed on with some sponsors, and the rest is history. It took about 1.5 years to get back to the top of the sport, which I feel pretty blessed to be able to do that.
When you started to go back full time, that was at like beginning of 2018?
Yeah,
right
exactly.
Timeline. And then in 2018, you didn't quite make the games because it was just kind of inevitable that you weren't, because you didn't have enough training time leading up to it. Did you ever have any like self-doubt about the decision to go back into CrossFit full time, or were you just like gung-ho committed to that decision that I'm definitely not going to go back to corporate America? Or was there ever like that thought of like maybe I should just go back?
Yeah, I think I always have that thought.
Yeah.
My corporate job was awesome. It supported my family, paid great benefits. It was awesome. But it wasn't where my heart was, right? And I've always felt like I had the ability to have a very successful career in this sport, and it was kind of taken from me. So you always have doubt in whatever you're doing in life, and I still have it now. But I think the people I surrounded myself with when I made that decision helped kind of crush that, because if you have, that can't like overwhelm you because it's just clouding the journey towards the goal. Right. So there's a little bit of doubt, but I think that's just natural for any pursuit in life. I'm pretty blessed to have the support system around me that.
No, that's awesome. I
think
that.
Focused.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that support system. Your wife's name is Cassandra, right?
Yeah, Cassandra Cass.
Cass. Awesome. Gotcha. So where did you meet her?
She was, what was that? Biology class, sophomore year of high school. She was my biology lab partner.
High school sweetheart. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did y'all, I don't want to get too into it.
Yeah, no breaks.
Did y'all date like, all the way through?
Yeah. She went to Belmont.
Okay.
Studied nursing when I was there doing the soccer thing, and she works at Centennial now. She works in the NICU, so the itty bitty babies. So yeah, no breaks.
When did you guys get married?
What was that? May 23rd, 2014.
Yeah, I was gonna say, kind of like I want to know that date.
Yeah.
So when did you? I'm gonna get a little personal here. When did you know that she was the one that you wanted to marry? Was there a defining moment?
So I told her that I wanted to marry her. I didn't propose, but I told her that like I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. We were actually downtown with a bunch of friends, and we walked back from Midtown through the Vandy campus. We lived right off in Hillsborough Village at the time.
Yeah.
So I told her on a walk. It was like, I don't know, midnight.
Yeah.
Some random night in Nashville.
And what'd she say?
Before all this stuff was here.
What'd she say back when you told her that? When you said you want to marry her?
Well, I didn't propose right there.
No, I know.
I was like, I think she was happy. I can't like remember exactly.
I'm really digging deep.
I think I was just kind of like spilling my heart out and like hoping that it ended up right.
I got you.
But it did.
All right, cool. So we talk a little bit about the wife. Let's get into your coach, Max Hogg. I know he was with you since like basically when you started, right? In CrossFit or 2014?
2014. So right after I made the World Championships, was like the games in 2014. I signed on with him.
Yeah.
So he wasn't there for like my first bid to the games, but right after that, I signed on with him. I was introduced to him through a mutual friend.
Okay.
And just kind of stuck it out until now.
Yeah.
He's been with me through all of the ups and downs of my career and life. So that's kind of what you look for when you are building a team. In like professional sports, it's important to have a really good team around you.
Yeah.
And he's a huge, huge part of that.
What do you think like is the biggest learning lesson that you've gotten from him that you don't think you would have gotten from maybe like another coach that you had? Like what makes him special?
He's helped me be a lot more introspective into why I'm doing what I'm doing, whether that's just why we're training a certain thing or why we're training a certain way or why results of a performance affect me in a certain way. He's just helped me mature as an athlete and become, like a very seasoned vet who's confident in all my processes and what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So just building my self-awareness has been a big thing that he's helped me kind of navigate through the journey.
Awesome. I want to get a little bit into like the actual competition now itself. Is there like any one thing or a couple things that are most important for you in terms of like preparation right before you go compete, whether it's like physically or mental preparation right before you actually get into a competition?
I think it changes a little bit for each event. So this was my first season back like on the circuit, right? And I competed 4 times. So I competed in DC, Iceland, Brazil, and then Wisconsin at the CrossFit Games. And after the first event in DC, I finished 3rd place, and I sat down with Max and I was like, well, what can we do better? And it was dialing in game day nutrition. It had been 2 years since I competed. Dialing in what I did between events, what my recovery looked like between events and between days of the competition. And every event I went to, the goal was to improve those things a little bit and make sure it's just a completely refined process that's mindless. Because the less you think about what I need to do to recover, what do I need to do to eat, XYZ, the better you can perform. It's less energy wasted. So each event we refine those things. And I took third in DC, second in Iceland, and first in Brazil. And that's kind of like the perfect recipe for proving that our process was working. So I think, obviously, that's the long answer. Just making sure I meal prep when I get to like if I'm in Iceland and I get there on a Monday and I don't compete till Thursday, I go to the grocery store, I get all my food, I cook it all out for the week.
Yeah.
So I don't have to think about it.
Yeah. Like you said, it's basically just like so you can channel your energy to the right area
100%.
and not have to like waste it on all these kind of like things that can be mindless if prepped out beforehand.
Yeah. I'll even go to the event, like I'll go to the facility that we'll be competing at, and I'll like walk around and I'll get comfortable with my surroundings. So when I walk in the first day of competition, I've been there before, you know, nothing strange. So that's kind of the process, and you just repeat that at every event I go to.
Yeah, kind of on the same topic in terms of like the energy thing and like what you're thinking about when you're actually competing. Are you thinking about anything? Are you thinking about the crowd? Are you thinking about the technique that you have to perform on that exercise? Or what is actually going through your mind when you're going a particular event?
I think it depends what the event is. Okay. Sometimes it's better to not think. But for example, like if we're doing something like what you just did, it's a million different exercises, a million different reps. There's ways to focus in on, like if we're doing squats and I have to do 150 squats in a workout, well, I don't want to necessarily use the same pattern for every squat. Like I can move forward a little bit, make my quads work a little bit harder. I can sit back a little more, make my hamstrings and my glutes work a little bit harder. So there's little ways that you can manipulate the way you're moving to kind of conserve energy. And in any sport, it's seconds, right, or milliseconds that separate, first from second. Right. So that's little things like that, just being super mindful about how I'm moving. But I don't know that I think too much.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of what I'm doing, but I'm not like, oh man, like I have to snatch now. Do I need to like make sure my back's flat and like catch the bar?
Yeah,
like right. I don't need to be thinking about that because you probably won't be at the top of the sport if you're thinking about how to snatch.
Yeah.
So I think it's more about just managing energy output.
Yeah. So there's a number of guys in CrossFit and in the CrossFit Games and stuff that have been routinely kind of at the top. They routinely get to the games. They routinely kind of place at the games. What do you think is it about those people that allow them to be so consistent to perform at that highest level compared to everybody else? Is it like something with the preparation? Because I feel like everybody kind of knows what workouts to do and can push themselves to that like kind of utmost level. So is there anything that you might be able to point out that allows those people to stay at the top so consistently compared to everybody else?
I think it's probably health. I think, take the top 10 guys in the world, there's not a lot that's separating us. But if I come in and I have like a little knee tendonitis and maybe I haven't been squatting as much coming into an event and you've been perfectly healthy, then that's a huge separator.
Yeah.
Right? So I think the guys that are repeatedly at the top of any sport are really good at just managing their health and being mindful about why they're training. Just exercising and actually training are different.
Yeah.
Because training, there's kind of intention, where a lot of people do mindless exercise, like even in the like pros in the sport, just kind of throw volume. And they don't really know why they're doing it. They're just doing it because they think they need to do it. Where if you actually have an intentional direction about why you're doing certain things, that'll help you stay healthier. It'll help your longevity in the sport, and hopefully, if you're healthy and you're having a long career, it's been successful.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the biggest thing.
So if it's health and being like intentional and being aware about your body in order to make sure you're as healthy as possible going into it, what's like over the last year been the biggest thing that you've become most aware of about your own body in terms of trying to keep it at its peak health?
Taking my rest days seriously and my recovery seriously, and I typically do like an active recovery, which is a super chill, like road bike and swim or jog on Thursday, and then I'll take Sunday completely off. So making sure that I'm being diligent and not, if I see one of my buddies do something, because that still affects me a little bit, like, and I want to do it on Thursday, just don't do it. I'm 30 years old, like I don't need to be have emotional reactions towards silly things like that, like, oh, I need to go work out. So that's been a really big thing, just not throwing in extra volume when I think I need to, and really dialing in my nutrition. I work with Jamie Free, who's 27, health and wellness. He's in Brentwood as well. So he talks to me weekly, and we make adjustments based on what my training looks like. And then lastly is sleep. I try to sleep close to 10 hours every night.
Wow.
Which sounds crazy, but it really helps.
Dude, get up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got to make sure my body's recovering. So like 8 to 10 hours is good for
nice.
me. And I have the luxury to like kind of do that.
Yeah.
So,
Let's kind of get into more of your kind of day. So after your 10 hours of sleep and you wake up like eyes as wide as possible and super rested, that'd be nice. What does your kind of day look like in terms of training? How much do you train? What times do you train at? And what does the intentional training throughout the day look like?
So right now, I wake up probably around 8-ish, and I'll eat breakfast, and I'll go to the gym. I'll get to the gym around 9, and I'll train from roughly 9 to 11, 11:30 some days. Then I'll eat. I might have some like intra workout during that, like some carbohydrate, and then I'll train again from 1 to 3, roughly. I'll eat again, and then sometimes I train from like 5 to 7. I'm not doing triples right now because I'm not prepping for an event. Yeah, okay. And I'm kind of rehabbing the hamstring. But the closer you get to an event, the more volume you need to put in, because most of these events are, you're working out 5 times a day for 3 days in a row. So you can't just work out, once a day and be prepared for that. So as I get closer to an actual competition, I'll raise that volume a little bit.
Gotcha. I'll wait for them again.
I love that song.
I did too. You can sing, bro. You got the mic. So leading up to your 10th place finish in the CrossFit Games, I want you to kind of insert something into the sentence. If I hadn't started doing blank, I wouldn't have had the level of success at the games that I did.
If I didn't start having...
If you didn't start doing something in particular, if you didn't change something in particular...
One word answer?
No, you can fill in with like 9 sentences if you want to. Whatever.
I think self-belief in what I was doing. I think it's easy to get distracted by what other people in the sport are doing, or just that inherent desire to do more. I really believed in my process this whole year, and I kind of got confirmation bias by improving at each sanctioned event I went to, and that was really important. So just completely going all in into my process and letting that kind of navigate the waters, because I know like my performance, I'm going to do as best as I can at every event I go to. It's not like I'm going to go to an event and not try my hardest.
Right.
So that's a given, but making sure that I kind of have a dialed in approach. So yeah, just believing in my process.
So do you think, what was the biggest part? And you mentioned the one thing, like getting the success and the continued like 3rd, 2nd, increased place finishes at these events. But what outside of that allowed you to increase that level of self-belief that you're talking about was so important?
I think the best thing for any pursuit, the best confirmation is winning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So being able to actually get the results that I'm ultimately going for and to win is the best confirmation I could get. I'm like, oh, well, I got 3rd place. Let's refine a few things where I went wrong and see how I do. And then I did that and I got 2nd, and it was like, okay, well, maybe I had a little less than perfect execution. Next event, let's try to do that. And then I got 1st, and I was like, okay, well, this seems to be working.
Yeah.
Let's keep doing that. And we brought that into the games. Obviously, I tore my hamstring at the game, so Sunday was kind of a wash as far as what I was able to do winning events-wise. Yeah. But I felt like we were trending towards another podium finish. So
yeah, no, but I think that's like a big lesson in terms of like increasing your self-belief because of a result. Like now, that might sound for some people like a little bit hard to get, because it's like, oh, I have to win to actually get belief, but how can I get belief before I actually win? I think it's like really important to make small goals on like your pursuit of a big goal, because if you're able to see like the small win, that's going to increase that level of self-belief. Because if you're only banking on that long term, that big win to get your self-belief, then it's going to take forever, or it's never going to come, and you're going to stop staying committed to whatever your process is. So were there any like maybe small things that you did every single day to like check off? Or you don't have to physically check it off, but like any small things that you did every day that would be like small wins for you? And maybe something, maybe not even consciously that you noted them as such, but like maybe looking back on it now that was like maybe just like training this much was like a win for that day sort of a thing.
Yeah, I kind of let my body dictate how hard I push in training. And I really listened through the whole kidney thing. It kind of like, that's self-correcting, right? Like you go to kidney failure, you need to change something. So every day in training, if I like, it hurts to train all the time. It doesn't feel good. But there's, muscle burning pain and like metabolic pain. And then there's like actual joint pain, injury pain. So I am very conscious of how my body's feeling, and if I have like a little tightness in my back or something, I'll just chill, or I won't go as heavy, or I'll go home. I'll call it a day if like I get like a weird tweak from something. And I used to not do that. So again, man, it's like my answer for everything, just like being self-aware and just having huge. A lot of just like consciousness when you're doing what you're doing. Yeah,
no, I think self-awareness is one of the biggest things that we need to work on in order to get to the best version of ourselves. But I feel like a lot of people here probably have, CrossFit has this stigma of being a little bit dangerous, creating a lot of injuries and just kind of being dangerous. So what would you say to somebody who came up to you and asked you about CrossFit in terms of how safe it is and the injuries that it might cause and things of that nature? What do you say to that person?
Yeah, so it depends what their goals are. If you come up to me and you're like, I want to make the CrossFit Games, I'm going to be like, well, that's not healthy. Like, it's professional sports aren't healthy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But just training, whether it's CrossFit or boot camp or HIIT training or whatever it is, if you have somebody who's smart and cares about your well-being, leading you through the process, then hopefully it goes well. I'm not really biased towards CrossFit or HIIT or boot camp, whatever. Ultimately, we're all just trying to get tired, right? Like, that's the end result. So if you're having fun and you're feeling healthy, then I think that's the best you, right? There you go. So, again, CrossFit Games training or being a professional triathlete or an Olympian or whatever it is much, much different than what we did today. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people think, oh, I do CrossFit, like, oh, they're psychos, I see them on ESPN, like that's what they do. And it's like, nah, not really. I think it's like 0.1% of people that do CrossFit actually go to the CrossFit Games.
Right.
It's like how many flag football leagues are there? And there's only 53 guys on each NFL team. Yeah. So it's just a totally different pursuit. Fitness and being healthy is awesome, and it's a huge passion of mine. And I'm in my immediate friend group, I'm the only CrossFit Games athlete.
Yeah.
I have a few friends who are also pro athletes, but most of our friends are just regular people who like to do fitness. Some of them do boot camp, Orange Theory, CrossFit, doesn't matter. They're just having fun. You know what I mean?
I agree. I think like the biggest, because I probably had a little bit of that stigma too, but like the biggest thing that I heard to change that is like, it's a sport. Like the people who are going to actually participate in it, like for the games or for competition, it's a sport, and in every sport there's injuries. It's part of it. So just kind of knowing that it's a sport, knowing that it's part of the process is just kind of the biggest thing to realize. And not everybody has to compete at that level.
No, not everybody should try to do that either, because it's tough. It's a 9 to 5, or it's more than that.
Cool.
So yeah, I don't know that I don't like that there's stigmas around any fitness discipline, because it's just like people trying to have fun, sweat a little bit. But
yeah. All right, well, so we're going to be down to the last two questions. And if you've listened to my podcast before, I usually ask the same last two questions. So the first one is, you said you're 30 years old right now, right?
Yep.
So in 10 years down the road, you're going to be 40.
Yeah.
Does that scare you a little bit? No?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's inevitable, right?
I haven't thought about that, so there you go.
Well, now you're going to think about it. So 10 years down the road, you're 40 years old. What does Will Moorad look like? What have you done? What have you accomplished? And what are you currently doing?
Yeah, so I won't be competing in CrossFit in 10 years. I'd like to do this until I'm 35, so hopefully 5 more games appearances, hopefully a few podiums on there, maybe a win.
There you go.
And I'll probably at that point have grown my remote coaching business to where I'm 100% coach and not competing anymore. I know there's like masters CrossFit and stuff. I don't know that that's super appealing to me right now. Just because the time it takes to actually compete in this sport is so much time, right? I don't have a lot of like time for family and friends. It's just always training, eat, sleep, train. So
Sleep for 10 hours.
Yeah, sleep all day. Just so yeah, hopefully a pretty fruitful CrossFit Games career.
Cool.
And a thriving remote coaching business.
Cool. Well, good deal. Before I ask the last question, I want to acknowledge you because I really like how you kept coming back to like the self-awareness thing. I can tell, and everybody can tell, that you're a much more like mental athlete than probably a lot of people give meatheads credit for.
Yeah.
No, but you can tell like you're very intentional about your training and about everything that you do, about sleeping 10 hours a day, about sleeping 10 hours a day, and a lot of other things.
You guys should try it.
I'm just kidding. No, but I just think it's really cool that you can tell how of a mental athlete you are. So I want to acknowledge you for that. And also, I want to make sure people can support you in the following things that you got going on. You're on Instagram at Will Moorad, WILLMOORAD. Yep. So make sure you follow him. A lot of pictures with his shirt off, and and then what do you have coming up in terms of events, in terms of competing?
Yeah, so first thing is the Open in October 10th, and that's a 5-week qualification, online qualification thing, and that will hopefully gain me entry into several events throughout the season. And then I think the first event that I'm going to do, and then there's 6 to 8, including that one throughout the season that I'll be focusing on. But that's cool. The first one, the Open, and then Dubai, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, good luck. Everybody make sure you go follow him on Instagram and follow his journey and everything like that after today. But the last question, the podcast is called Best You. I believe that becoming the best version of yourself is a constant journey. Not sure if we're ever to that person. I think if we think we're that person, then we get complacent and stop trying to grow. But I also think it's a very unique journey. I think that the way that I'm going to become the best version of myself is going to be a little bit different from the way that you become the best version of yourself. So what I want to ask for you personally is if you could currently work on or do 3 things to get closer to that best version of yourself, to get closer to that best version of Will Moorad, what would those 3 things be that you could do or that you could work on?
It's tough because I try to like separate myself into like athlete Will and then like husband Will, family Will, friend Will. I think as far as the friend, family, husband part, I could probably just let that part of my life grow a little bit more.
And like, friend and family part?
No, I mean just like go and like hang out with my friends. If they're like going out or something, I'm typically gonna just stay home and chill because just going out in Nashville's a tempting thing, right? Yeah. So I just kind of like, but maybe just being a little more free with that. But I feel like I balanced that decently well. Athlete part, I think for me, and it sounds kind of crappy, like the best version of me would be to win the CrossFit Games.
Yeah. So, well, if you had to pick one thing to make that happen, what would it be? I know there's like a ton of things, but
I guess just enjoy the process.
Okay.
It gets pretty stressful at some points, especially when you're training 6-8 hours a day leading into an event and your joints hurt and everything, and it's easy to just be like, oh, this sucks. But I'm privileged to be able to do what I do and to have the abilities that I have. So just enjoying that process and reminding myself that like this is pretty freaking awesome. So,
so we got to enjoy going out with friends a little bit more, maybe spending some time, enjoying the process for the athlete, whether you want to go into family or whatever it is. What's that number 3?
I think being able to share my process with like a wider audience, that's kind of outside of those 2 things.
Yeah.
That might be like more what I stand for, my mantra, whatever it is. I think that I've gone through a lot and experienced a lot in the fitness realm, from school to being a pro athlete to leaving the sport and all those things. So I think I just have a lot to share with people. So maybe just growing that avenue a little bit.
That's awesome. Well, those are 3 great things. Everybody give Will a round of applause real quick.